Well, 22 years ago, this event behind me took place. Of course, was it around? Well, of course, 32 years is a long time. Saw that to the peak state. But the reality is, there's something about this season. There's about a time like this when we go ahead and we look back at history unfolding before our very eyes and think to ourselves, damn, it is certainly that time. Ladies and gentlemen, it's WrestleMania season, and it's only one way you can spend a Saturday when it comes down to an afternoon like this. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of the phenomenon known to mankind, this Saturday afternoon's main event. In case you've been living under a rock and you do not know who the blue hell I am, I suggest you go back to school or go to your local library, get the biggest dictionary you can find, preferably Merriam-Webster, and look me up under the words phenomenal. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, it is I, the phenomenal one, here back again, going ahead and starting off today's show here on Sane. Guys, we have a stacked show in store for you guys, but the reality is, when it comes down to Saturday afternoon's main event, is that I'm not alone. Because I have my pristine colleague and co-host, my brother from another mother, dimension, and millennium, the one and only limousine-riding, jet-flying, kiss-stealing, wheeling-dealing, son of a gun, who is not having a hard time holding his alligators down. So without further ado, guys, give me 2 claps and a peep snake. There we go.
Woo! Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Another great Saturday. We got another good show lined up. And of course, we can't do this show, first and foremost, without you, the fans that are joining in, and all of the social media handles that we're going to be talking to you about as soon as we get into our introductions. But of course, we can't do that without all of those 3 tenets that we always set you up for a great Saturday. And of course, it's laughs, good times, and all the wrestling moves possible. And then just pounce if you can. We want you to be like the alpha male, Monty Brown, and just pounce. Period.
Monty Brown of all people are good
yes.
stuff. Good stuff. But in all duality, peeps, great to have you back for another great Saturday afternoon, my friend.
Yes.
But
thank you.
I guess we have to go ahead and address the elephant in the room, right? Our other co-host. Guys, we can't go ahead and constantly not do this. We have to. It's the reality, and it's written in his intellectual property that he gets his own theme song too. So, you know what? Here's what I'll go ahead and say. Not only is he my uncle, but he's your uncle. He is the Peeps' uncle. He's everybody's uncle. Ladies and gentlemen, a progenitor, an originator of Saturday afternoon's main event, the one and only Uncle Triple C.
Welcome to once again, folks. You guys, as you can see, have a little blood here. Because my boy, the king of the luchadors, Dominic Mysterio, when he bleeds, I bleed. But he's okay now. And since he's okay, I guess I'll be okay too. But anyway, folks, welcome, because we are now exactly 28 days from WrestleMania. More importantly, the king of the luchadors, Dominic Mysterio, is still the greatest mega triple A heavyweight champion of all time, my boy, Dominic Mysterio. Folks, of course, this is Saturday afternoon's main event. And in case you guys don't know this, and this time around, it is still without an actual umbrella. It is still under the umbrella of the Uncle Triple C era. I am here live in studio. Now, of course, if you guys don't know me, I don't know how you don't know me. I am still your uncle, Triple C, here on Saturday afternoon's main event. Of course, we do have the People's Nature Boy. We do have, I used to call you a piece of hot garbage, but you are now a deadbeat nephew. Phenomenal one. Now,
how do we get there?
Let me talk about the fourth member here on Saturday afternoon's main event. And I'm going to get serious just for a moment. My pristine colleague, Mr. 411, Christopher Morton. He is not here. Folks, our friend, Christopher Morton, he's been going through some things. So just want to say, we wish you well. We know you're going to get through everything. You know, Mr. 411, we all here on Saturday afternoon's main event, we all love you. So,
indeed,
that takes care of that. And
toast.
I will toast to my pristine colleague, 411.
Salute.
Like they say in the Buds commercial, this is for you.
Yes, it is.
Indeed. But beyond all, welcome, gentlemen. It's great to have you for another great Saturday afternoon. Like Uncle Triple C said, 28 days to the granddaddy of them all, the showcase of the Immortals, WrestleMania 42, emanating from Las Vegas, Nevada. Again, I digress. First one of the show, peeps. Look at that.
There you go.
But before we even go ahead and get into the show, I want to address the comment section because it seems like YouTube is popping off. Pokemon 52 says Penta better. Just saying.
You know,
Mid Mysterio.
Mid Mysterio. Wow.
You know, Pokemon. Is that still a thing here? Is that still a thing? Pokemon, what the hell do you know? Okay, and obviously, the one thing I will say, Pokemon, you do know is that Mid Mysterio. Clearly, you're talking about that deadbeat Rey Mysterio. Carry on.
Well, it seems like he might not be talking about Rey Mysterio because Jamal Too Crazy Gaming says Dom sucks.
Oh,
what a comment section.
It's like the first 10 minutes turned into a flame session.
Jamal, you are aggravating the uncle. You're aggravating the uncle because, you see, I've always loved the people. The people of Saturday afternoon's main event.
It must really be about the people. It must continue to be about the people. But yes. I agree, Uncle Triple C. But look, beyond all, again, it was a stacked wrestling week. A lot happened within the last 7 days. And I think it's only fair that we go ahead and get started with today's show. Before we do that, I want to say to you guys, thank you for going ahead and tuning in. If you haven't yet followed us on any of our social media platforms, you can go ahead and do so by following us on our Instagram at Saturday Afternoons _main event, our Twitter being Saturday Main, and our TikTok as well being Saturday Afternoons ME. But we'll go ahead and get started with today's show. And as you can see, Uncle Triple C has already dimmed the lights.
I guess this is a spoiler alert, huh?
Spoiler alert. I guess he knows what we're going to be talking about today.
Good grief.
But look, you know when you hear that sound, it's time for one thing and one thing only. It is time for Three Row Talk, all of the professional wrestling news you can possibly get that consists within the span of the squared circle. Now, as you can see, we can go ahead and say so long to Uncle Triple C for now because we are talking AEW Revolution.
Yes.
Peeps. What a show. We're not going to go ahead and go through the whole card. It happened, of course, yes. Tekla retained. Ricochet went ahead and went on an onslaught, which we will get into later.
Oh, we are going to get into that. Oh boy, we're going to put some verbs in our sentences on this one.
Verbs are just going to be an understatement, my friend. But what we really want to talk is that Texas death match between Hangman Adam Page and MJF, of course, with the stipulation being that if Hangman lost the match, he would no longer be able to challenge for the AEW World title. And guess what? The Devil came out on top. MJF reigned supreme as he stood over the dead carcass of one Hangman Adam Page, retaining the AEW World title. Okay. What I want to say, the ending to that match, right? Hanging Hangman. And as he finished hanging Hangman, let go of the dog collar chain, that made an appearance after 4 years of it being gone, after his match against CM Punk at the previous Revolution several years ago. Hangman's face went straight into the camera with a speck of blood being on the camera and going ahead and captivating and staying right there until Hangman couldn't reach the count of 10. Peeps, what a visual.
Yes, it was.
Cheesy. I felt like a GCW show. What are we doing here, peeps? What are we doing? Talk to me. How did you feel about it?
Okay. First and foremost, when we're talking about an AEW pay-per-view on a Sunday, you know where I went to see it.
Of course.
So, of course, we know, for those that have ever been to Dave & Buster's, if you go to see a pay-per-view or premium live event on a weekend, Saturday is better than Sunday because Saturday they stay open late. Sunday, they shut everything off at midnight. And you know AEW pay-per-views tend to run long. This one ran until about 12:45-ish because the main event, matter of fact, the main event started at about 11:35, 11:40-ish. The main event match itself was almost 46 minutes. So you can basically bank on the fact that I missed about half the match. Mm-hmm. I was able to see the replay of the match as I got home. I was able to watch it and watch it from beginning to end because I watched the entirety up to that point. So that's the background for that.
Of course.
I enjoyed the first half of the match because the story that they were trying to tell was Page was going to try to do everything in his power to win this championship because we know if he doesn't win, it's not one of those stipulations where he will never get a championship shot as long as MJF is champ. It's he will never get another AEW title shot, period. Now, they can work that story at some point down the road, wherever, if they decide to bring it up, but that's a different story. But it was violent, as we expected. It was going to be a tough match to watch for those that aren't into the violence. The AEW fan base, rabid as they would to watch this match. But as I said before, I liked the first half of the match. And then there were a lot of spots toward the middle part of the match later on in the match, which turned into an indie GCW type of death match. If you were into that, okay. If you were into Swerve versus Page, the cage match with the syringes and the cinder blocks and all of that other stuff, this was right up your alley. But AEW,
who implements syringes in Texas? Like, whose idea?
Yeah, this is the issue. It's not violence that is the problem. It's violence for violence sake. Mm-hmm. And what was, to me, diminishing for me, just for me, because I've watched every AEW pay-per-view they've had. I have watched AEW. I am, as I've said before, I am happy that there is an AEW. I am glad that they have the talent that they have. But they have decisions in certain parts of AEW that question me. MJF being the face of the company, world heavyweight champion, knowing what he is, who he can be, and as far as I'm concerned, one of the driving reasons why interest in AEW has been upped is because he is world champion again. The fact that he has, because he's the face of the franchise, in a high-profile match where he literally went the extra mile. And when I say the extra mile in this match, forget barbed wire. The syringes made a triumphant return. We also had wooden shish kebab skewers back into this one. We also had light tubes on the aisle that were made a return as well.
Don't forget. Real glass, Crimea River.
It was, I liked how they started the match at the beginning, the vignette that they did, where MJF came out riding a horse, and then he got off the horse, walked to the proverbial Page's grave, and literally pissed on it. Mm-hmm. And I like the homage that MJF did to Terry Funk by wearing the Terry Funk poncho and the Terry Funk tights.
Yes.
And his boots look very similar to Terry Funk's. So you saw where they were going with this. But there were a lot of things in that match that I did not really think needed to be in there. Needly what I just mentioned. The ending of the match was what it should have been. Better than what we saw with Page versus Moxley, where Moxley was strangled on the top rope, and instead of the count happening, he taps. That's not what a Texas death match is supposed to be.
Peeps. Also, in every sense, when it comes down to storytelling, there was enough storytelling within the match. But like you said, it seems like when it came down to extreme, they wanted to take it to the extreme. And yes. The faces of the people in the arena, when they would show fans kind of with a gasp or, in a sense of, oh my God, this is really happening before my very eyes. It gives off, okay, good. You guys got the extreme factor down on a notch.
Yes.
What's next? Because now we're gonna what? Are we gonna have more Texas death matches in the future? We possibly are when it comes down to AEW. How extreme can you possibly get even more? I was expecting MJF to go ahead and pull out a gun and shoot Hangman and kill him right then and there. What's next? What else can you possibly do to shoot past this?
MJF did some of the things that, as I said before, that I've always loved about MJF is that he's very cerebral in how he delivers his brand of heel tactics. He brought in what looked like a window that had panes of glass in it. And as he was going to bring it into the ring and then the glass kind of fell out, he just said, no, I'm not using it. Eventually, it did get used, and using the glass in the ring, the real glass, Crimea River, and then using that piece of glass to gig Page in the head was very, very reminiscent of some of the other matches that we've seen in the violent stretch of what AEW is doing. As I said before, AEW, if their wheelhouse is the excess violence and all of that grit that they usually do, just lean into it, which is what they did. By far, they definitely leaned into it on this one. So from that extent, they gave the sickos, the fans out there, the AEW diehards, that's what they wanted. But there were parts in the match, especially with the barbed wire board that was put on the table, where I heard a huge contingent of fans chanting, "We want fire. We want fire." This is where we're at, folks. So
didn't need more. Look, It happened. So be it. Death to Hangman Adam Page. Cool. Where do we go from here? We have yes. But it seems like it's going to be Darby Allin. So look, jump off the freaking arena for God's sakes. Kill yourself.
We did have some other good things that happened in the pay-per-view because the pay-per-view was solid. Indeed. There were a lot of really good matches. My favorite match of the entire show was Bandito and Andrade, which was without question the finest match on the entire card. I love that match from beginning to end.
I agree. Well, with that being said, we will have more to talk about when it comes down to the AEW national title, which we will get to sooner or later.
Yes, we will.
This marks the end of our AEW Revolution review. And I think it's only fair that we can go ahead and bring back the uncle into the show. So, without further ado, Uncle Triple C, welcome back.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I was watching the third brand. Sorry.
The third brand.
Wow.
The third brand. I'll say it now. Sorry. Because I'm sure there's a reason why I'm saying the third brand, and Nate will get to that later on. But anyway, after 15 boring minutes of these two guys talking about AEW, now we can switch our attention to the world of WWE.
Indeed. Why, thank you, Uncle Triple C. We are now getting with our Raw and SmackDown review. Look, Raw this past Monday night, we had the exchange between CM Punk and Roman Reigns again for the second time in a row. What are we getting from this? Of course, Punk got called old. A lot of people didn't understand the full gravity of it. Some people liked it, others didn't. What were your thoughts on the exchange when it came down to CM Punk and Roman? Uncle Triple C, we'll start with you.
As far as Punk goes, calling him old, I have to see what he says about that on Monday. I didn't get why Punk would snap because of that one word being called old. Hell, look at John Cena. I mean, the guy's 47, 48 years old, having his last match. AJ Styles, around a similar age. So I don't get why Punk would snap off that one word. So again, I need to see what transpires, this upcoming Monday.
So you want to see more context behind the word of why he would use it.
Right.
Gotcha.
Peeps, do you feel the same way?
I like the way that they developed the entire promo battle back and forth, especially to me, the line that I think zinged the most, and I like the way Roman stood up to it, was the fact that, he was like, well, you keep flashing my name, Phil, like it's, a dirty word or whatever is the case. I could call you, I forgot what he went and tried to make fun of his Samoan name. And then he went and said, well, I could call you Joe. But then if I call you Joe, that would be an insult to the only Samoan that I know of named Joe that's still watching. Like, wow, they went there. And that worked. I chuckled when I heard that. And I think the entire audience that were in the building, they really woke up with that. So that's when we started to say, well, what are we watching? They really going there. So I think we have kind of like a blueprint as to what I think was going to happen over the next 3 or 4 weeks before we get to WrestleMania. I think we're both wondering, all three of us, at some point Larry is going to be made reference of.
Yes.
You, Uncle, last week talked about at some point they may make some kind of reference to Brock Lesnar somewhere in there. I think that would probably be cannon fodder as well, based on the proximity of all of these combustible elements that they're trying to throw in here that makes this feel even more personal than it probably is. That's what I'm waiting for. But the setup for everything involved was really good.
Now, here's what I have to say towards the old comment made by Roman Reigns. When it comes down to it, I've heard a lot of different wrestling podcasts this past week. One of them in particular being Busted Open Radio with Bubba Ray. One of the things that he said was that while he was in a storyline with Sting even mentioned him and told him, look, Bully, you could say whatever you want in your promo against me. The one thing you just don't call me old. And I think when you get called old in professional wrestling, I guess it's kind of like a cardinal sin, because you're telling somebody who is, of course, somewhat past their prime, on the edge and heels of possibly retiring, that they don't have it anymore. Same with professional basketball and football players or hockey players. When they know father time is catching up to them, they would rather not get told that, but they would rather do as much as they possibly can to still be the best. For me, I feel like when Roman made that comment to Punk, it didn't click right then and there, but then I had to sit there and think, Punk is closer to retirement. From where it looks like Roman may still have a lot left in the tank, Punk, we know, may be on his last world title reign. He may be gone within the next 2 to 3 years. That's the reality of all of this. And I think Punk has been riding high so much since his return to WWE that he's looked good. He's been working in the ring well. He has put on banger of matches back to back to back to back, and he feels like he's literally the CM Punk of 2000s. To sit there and see now that Roman is now mentioning his age, it's kind of an insult to him, and he feels disrespected by it. Of course, we want to hear a Larry insult. That's where it genuinely hits. But I feel like the old remark has so much more in store, because if that's the case, then we are beginning the retirement of CM Punk right after WrestleMania. That's my mindset.
I definitely disagree on that. I don't think that we're on a, Punk retiring within a year or so. No, I don't think so. The old reference, again, I need to see this Monday night what takes place. Overall, it was definitely a good segment that, They're definitely delivering on the mic. Obviously, Punk with the first blow. You know, Roman in these next 3 weeks leading up to WrestleMania will get his, on Punk.
And the inverse of what Roman calling Punk old was then Punk calling Roman a young boy. And for those that don't get the reference, if you look at anything from New Japan, all of the young wrestlers that trained in the dojo in New Japan after they were rookies, they were all called young boys. And that is kind of almost like being called a Padawan in the Jedi world. So it's kind of accepted that that's what that is the case. But you keep forgetting, Roman has been wrestling for almost 15 years. So it's not like he's just started wrestling. So to call him a young boy, that's just as disrespectful in the opposite end on the inverse. So there's that whole thing. And what I like, the dynamic difference with this is that Roman does not look flustered in the face of what he's getting from Punk. Whereas if you remember the feud that Roman had a couple of years back with John Cena, where Cena every week ran him down, Roman looked physically upset with some of the promo stuff that he took. He looked like he took a lot of that personal. He almost looks bulletproof right now. And I think that's the difference in why these hit better in this feud.
Nate, you cannot compare pre-Bloodline Roman Reigns to current Roman Reigns. So obviously at that time, he was Vince McMahon's poster boy as being the next, guy that they're marketing, to be the face of the company. So this version of Roman Reigns, like you said, he's more bulletproof. So it's a completely different Roman Reigns. But forget that. How about Brock Lesnar and Oba Femi on Monday night? How about that?
Oh, yes.
I would certainly want to go hours and hours upon with that because, of course, we did have that altercation coming face to face together. Of course, Brock Lesnar interrupting Seth Rollins, who was going off on Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman coming out, going ahead and issuing FA, FO, FA, F5. Brock comes out face to face with Seth Rollins. We thought that was the match that we were possibly getting at WrestleMania. Then the lights go out. Oba Femi comes in. Oba Feminis rise.
Yes.
And Brock takes the biggest pop-up power bomb that I've possibly seen him take from another big man.
Yes.
But let's talk about something here, because I don't know if you guys noticed it. Did you guys notice that Oba Femi shed tears as Brock was outside the ring?
Yes.
It kind of felt like he felt excited, he felt happy, he felt emotional that Brock was putting him over in that moment. But the reality is, and the product of this equation is that we are officially getting Oba Femi versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania.
Yes.
What are the implications? How do you guys feel? Uncle Triple C, it seems like you popped hard for that segment. How are you feeling about the match being made?
Definitely popped for that segment, just like I'm sure everybody else when his music hit. Listen, give Brock Lesnar a lot of credit. Whether he goes over at WrestleMania, in professional wrestling, it's all about the moments, And there was a moment in that after the powerbomb. If you look closely, Lesnar's on the ground, on the floor, or on the mat, I should say, and you can see him saying something to Oba. Clearly, he must have told Oba, "Put your foot on my chest." That's showing the dominance, and that's probably why I'm sure Oba was not expecting that. And I'm sure after that segment happened, and as you alluded to, deadbeat nephew, that at the end of the day, listen, Oba Femi clearly, with the tears coming down his eyes, obviously he's like, I've arrived on the big stage. And this is clearly a big stage for Oba. Again, it kind of reminds me of, I know whatever you want to call it, because of Undertaker. And I remember, the year Brock Lesnar broke Taker's streak. I remember the very first segment that they had. It was a contract signing. And Taker comes out and Taker choke slams Brock. Obviously, Taker's already a made man, obviously, whatever. But it kind of reminded me of Oba, getting one up on Brock. So kudos to that segment. Awesome segment. I think that was the best segment of the night, even with Reigns and Punk as the main event this past Monday.
I agree.
Yes. and the pop, the that was Road Warrior pop. That was Austin pop. That was almost rock pop. That was Taker pop. That was the kind of pop that you see when the fans have an organic build, as you've heard me talk about over the years. When you build someone organically, it's a grassroots building. Everybody saw what he did in NXT. And I think the two people that hurt NXT the most that have gone to the main roster because of their absences from there are Obafemi and Trick Williams. Those are the two that are hurting the roster the most by their presence no longer being felt there. But what they're doing with Oba is absolutely beautiful. And as long as they continue on this, I would not be shocked if you told me at WrestleMania that not only did Brock lose, but Brock got squashed. And I can understand that if that was the case, Brock would probably be happy about it based on how he's building this and how the company is building Oba.
I agree. And it's funny because one comment being made here by J-Nator Productions is simply expressing how Peeps Nate may have felt in the moment. No bread, no water, just me.
Just me.
BMMSM at WrestleMania. Peeps,
there you go.
Wish.
There you go.
Certainly from there, that was Monday Night Raw. Let's turn over to SmackDown now. Randy Orton has officially entered Viper hybrid mode. It seems as if the voices in his head take a step back for 1 second, and then it automatically clicks the next. Of course, we saw last night with him going ahead and kind of going up to Matt Cardona, who confronted him about how he attacked Cody. He took a push. He took a shove. Jelly Roll comes in, tries to talk to Randy, tone him down. Randy seemed as if he was listening. Beyond all, Randy might be hearing voices in his head, but it seems like he also may be talking to people on the phone. Well, of course, we saw that on Monday on Raw. Now it happens again live on SmackDown. But fast forward into the show, in the main event, he calls out Matt Cardona to apologize to him just for him to issue another beatdown similar to the one that he gave Cody, but with the difference this time being that he takes the chair, puts it in Matt Cardona's arm, and stomps on it, probably issuing that Matt Cardona may be out for a long period of time. But what are your thoughts about this side of Randy Orton that we're currently seeing? Peeps?
This is the evolution, so to speak, of what Orton wants to do with this character. At one point, I was of the mindset that this was going to be Randy Orton flipping the switch just because he was using this as the advantage that he thinks he needs to get over Cody. And then when the main event of WrestleMania is over with, he's back to being himself. I don't think that that's what is happening here right now. What I do think that they're doing as far as building Orton and his character is that he's conflicted to some degree. He said that he had to smile and look at the fans and high five everybody, and he loves them listening to his music and etc. But he also said that those smiles made him feel like the emptiest person in the world. So he's conflicted with what he did to stay in the picture, the vignettes that they showed of all of the times that he hugged and hung out with Cody, tapping the championship belt in his presence, really kind of talking about those kinds of things. And really right now, it's all about obsessing over not a WrestleMania moment, because he said that in his promo, was getting number 15. And he talked about the one overarching word that is going to cover this whole entire deal. And he said that's legacy. He made sure to mention that more than once. And I think that that's something that is going on. And for those that are trying to figure out, well, who was that person he was talking to on the phone, or who that was the case? If I was to gauge a guess, my personal opinion, I would not be surprised if it was Bob Orton Jr., his father, trying to tell him, Randy, you know who you are. Remember where you come from, what stock you come from, and what your last name is. Remember what I taught you, boy. And I think that's where that aspect of the story is. And as we go forward into the storyline and see how this happens on Orton's side, maybe that's what we'll learn going forward.
Okay, Uncle Triple C.
Well, we certainly know it's not Ted DiBiase Jr. making that phone call to Randy Orton. Bottom line, Matt Cardona deserved everything he got yesterday. I felt that, you know what, Zack Ryder, woo, Matt Cardona, you've not met nothing so far since you've returned. All you are is just Chelsea Green's husband. Sorry, Mr. 411. But the way I look at it is that Randy Orton, you listen to the fans. You see, I listen not to the voices, but I listen to the people. The people. And you heard. They even said one more time they wanted him to destroy Matt Cardona. Again, WWE, this is where I feel like, hey, you got the wrong guy to turn. It should have been Cody, not Randy. Because at this point in Randy's career, the fans really don't want to boo Randy Orton. It's gotten to that point now that I feel that ship has sailed. Some fans, I guess the diehard Cody fans or maybe the Cody crybabies will have something to say about that. But for the most part, I feel granted they're going to try to do everything in their power to have Randy, get booed by the time we get to WrestleMania. But to me, I feel that it's the wrong guy they're turning. But overall, still a good segment.
All in all, I think for you guys, this is very eerily similar to the build to the Intercontinental title match at WrestleMania 3 between Steamboat and Savage, to where the people wanted Savage to be a heel and they were okay with him being a heel, to the point where he even dropped an elbow with the ring bell onto Steamboat and fans still cheered. In this sense, people...
Yes.
In this sense, I think people are okay with Randy Orton being a heel in this sense, and they're happy about it. But don't worry, because later on in today's show, the final topic will cover that more into it and the character arc of Cody Rhodes. But with all of that, one more thing. Jacob Fatu, Drew McIntyre, what in the blue hell is going on? Peeps, this is really taking a turn for the worst.
Yes.
These guys are now ending the show, jumping off of things together. Hell on earth has ensued between those two men.
Yes. They started, first of all, they came in hot. They ended the show the way they started the show. The show started off with a promo about to happen, and then all of a sudden you see people racing into the parking lot. What the heck is going on? What's going on? It was a car accident. Car accident happened. We see Drew literally ripping the windshield off of the expensive rental car Audi of Jacob Fatu, which then proceeded to literally beat him senseless and bloody him. And they fought throughout the entirety of the broadcast in different segments, in the parking lot, in the locker room, in the hallway, or back out to the catwalk. This has blood feud written all over it. And what they're doing with Drew and what they're doing with Jacob, it further indicates how deeply they have done a great job of creating and fleshing out Drew McIntyre's character. They've gone from his hatred of Seth Rollins, that morphed into his hatred to CM Punk, that lasted until his hatred for Roman and the Bloodline, and then this continues on through Jacob Fatu, who cost him the championship a couple of weeks ago. So now this has gotten even more so developed into something that they want to bring to WrestleMania. And I think that the only way that you can end this is to stick these two in a cage. If you don't stick them in a cage, you stick them in a Hell in a Cell, and you put that at night 1 or maybe night 2 at WrestleMania. But I think all roads are leading to that particular instance, the way that they're doing this.
Yes. Uncle Triple C?
There's only one, as you know, Nate, you beat me to it because I was going right there with you. So it's not really much more for me to add, except one thing. I'm going to use the old chairman of the board, the way he used to say it. There's only one way for this feud to end. hell in a cell.
I am riding that bandwagon alongside you two gentlemen because peeps, get the hell out my head, man. Like, jeez, took my idea right from under me. But
there you go.
It's all good, my friend, because yes, I feel that feud should be ending inside Hell in a Cell. The way that these men started and ended SmackDown, there's no other way to go about it. And I think that Aldis even has that sadistic thought in his head as well. After Drew went ahead and even mentioned Aldis' son.
Yes.
And you know what? Again, the work that Drew has been doing.
Nick Aldis?
Yes.
Look, I'm happy about it. But you see, the fact that Drew's the biggest heel the company has ever seen within the last decade, and they're treating him like this, the man should have been champion. I'm sorry. I digress. Second one of the day.
There you go.
But, get over it. Listen, deadbeat nephew, get over it. Nate, hit the ratings.
Ratings is great.
Cameraman.
I'll say this. Before we get to the ratings, we'll get to this last piece of news for Three Rope Talk here. And it is Ricochet's social media blunder.
Oh,
I
yes.
think Uncle Triple C might be okay with staying for that.
I guess not.
I guess not. Peeps, real quickly. Ricochet. The man went on social media, said something to a fan that has multiple sclerosis, said to them that he is glad that they got MS after they just went ahead and tweeted to him saying that his acting hasn't improved. And he felt the need to go ahead and bring up their health situation to the point where the person said, well, look, if that makes you feel better, I hope you have a good life. And that was it. But peeps, the backlash that he got from fans for him to forward then try to justify his actions by saying, oh, people try to say this to me. People send threats to me, my wife. They say the darnest things. And the minute I go ahead and say something back, it's a problem. All of you are a bunch of... I can't say it. But all in all, Ricochet then does that. Not even 2 days later, he then wants to issue an apology. Peeps, what are your thoughts about this? The man, put the phone down, right?
Yeah, I'm going to be as concise as I possibly can. I have a very good friend of mine who has a family member who has MS. And knowing what that can do to somebody, the one thing that you don't want to do is start attacking fans. I understand. Ricochet is portraying a character, unlike MJF, who does it better than anyone else, to the extent that he plays a villain so well that he literally pisses people off outside of the wrestling business on a regular basis, and that's his job. The difference is, the one thing you do not do is you do not go and make it personal. You don't go after kids, you don't go after the elderly, you don't go after the disabled. And the one thing that he did was, in his inevitable heel run that he's trying to preserve and trying to come across as being somebody who's clever and snazzy and trying to make sure that he's the guy that's going to get himself and his character over because he lost the AEW national title. Now, mind you, he didn't lose the AEW world title. He didn't lose a world tag team title. He lost the AEW national title, a title that, outside of people like us or the AEW fans that are watching the product, nobody knows about.
Nobody knows about.
And if you're thinking about it from this standpoint, he has to make sure that if this is something that he's going to do, and I'm sure this is just my opinion, I'm sure Tony Khan got in his ear, got on him and said something to him, and issued that apology. Because right now, those are the kinds of things that you do not say and do not do. And if you're going to come across and say something like that, those are the kinds of comments that can get you fired. Indeed. And if something were to happen to him as far as his push or something happening to him or whatever was the case, I would not blink an eye in saying, well, you shouldn't have said what you said. Period.
Point blank period. Point blank period. So look, gets fired, he gets fired. Stays, but then that's going to be a stain on AEW. I'm probably thinking that Tony's going to give him a suspension. But at the end of the day, Ricochet, he deserves it. I don't give a crap. He deserves it. But all in all, his social media blunder, when it comes down to these people, put the damn phone down. Get the hell off social media. you know what? There's a reason why fans call him bald, and he goes ahead and cries off about it. I'm done, man. Like,
you can only say so much on social media to get yourself open, but I digress.
I digress. All right, peeps. Well, look, right before ratings, just want to go ahead and send a quick, condolences to the families and friends of Dennis Condrey, because, of course, just yesterday he had passed away.
Yes.
Of course, certainly one half of the Midnight Express, one individual that you two are certainly in, in cahoots, because you guys have watched his career take place within the Midnight Express alongside, his other faction members. So, of course, condolences to him and his family members. Just certainly sad. Peeps, any thoughts about that?
Yes, and it's ironic because your uncle, as he was growing up watching wrestling, one of his favorite tag teams was the Rock and Roll Express. My favorite tag team has always been the Midnight Express, and a close second were the Road Warriors. But the Midnight Express I grabbed an affinity to them because of not just Jim Cornette, but Loverboy Dennis, Beautiful Bobby, and the art form of tag team wrestling as they showed. Initially, it was Dennis Condrey and Ravishing Randy Rose. And then eventually, as Randy Rose was moved away from the Midnight Express, they brought in Bobby Eaton. And then Condrey and Eaton became a force to be reckoned with. First in Dallas, when they were both in world class. And then when they moved over to Crockett, winning the NWA World Tag Team titles and having probably the longest tag team feud you can have between the Rock and Roll Express and the Midnight Express. And that feud went on for like 6 or 7 years in various promotions throughout the years. And to see that Condrey, who was 74 years old, passing away, I believe Dak Shepard was able to start a GoFundMe page with the wife of Dennis Condrey because of his funeral arrangements and all of the preparation involved with that, to kind of help out with that. It's going to be one of those things that you're going to miss if you are an old school wrestling fan.
Indeed. Uncle Triple C?
There's not really much to say. Just rest in peace, Dennis Condrey. You'll definitely be missed. One of the, as Nate talked about, one of the great, tag teams from the 80s and one of the greatest tag teams in professional wrestling. Rest in peace to him, and Godspeed to him and his family.
Indeed. Well, peeps, with that being said, what are the ratings for this week? Give us the ratings.
Ratings for this week are quite impressive, actually. AEW won again. This is the 4th time in 7 weeks that AEW Dynamite has won. 730,000 viewers with a .13 in the demo. Whereas NXT did 588,000 with a .07 in the demo. Now, as we didn't get TNA's ratings because they come on Thursdays, their ratings don't get known until usually the weekend, usually the day or so after we've done the show. Last week's Impact did 259,000 with a .04 in the demo. So they are increasing their rating. And that works. As far as the other shows right now, we all know that over-the-air terrestrial wrestling has kind of dipped some. We know that because of the way that the Nielsen ratings were carrying their, calculating their ratings, they changed it back in like September. They've had to revise it back to the old way because lots of networks were complaining about how low their ratings have become. And now what we're seeing is a steady growing of some of the wrestling audience back to what we're watching right now. Is that AEW's ratings have picked up. SmackDown's ratings have started to go up a little bit as well. So we're starting to see that uptick. As a matter of fact, even Collision's ratings are going up. 458,000 watched last week's Collision with a .07 in the demo. So their ratings are rising as well. So overall, ratings are starting to steadily go up some. And as your uncle pointed out before, we've talked about this ad nauseum. NXT's ratings are suffering not because they're on over-the-air television. is the fact that they've lost a good chunk of recognizable stars to the main roster, and they have to now rebuild and retool to get some stars noticed again. And I think that's kind of where that happens.
Indeed. Well, peeps, thank you for the ratings there, my friend. That marks the end of 3-0 Talk and the ratings, of course, itself. Guys, we are now going to get into our question of the week. Guys, if you want to go ahead and send in the question, if you think that it's that damn good, go ahead and DM us on our Instagram at Saturday Afternoons_main event. Send in the question. And in the words of JBL, I guarantee it'll be on the next episode of the show. This one comes from Hot Rod 316. He says, what if Tony Khan won the bid to buy WWE in 2023? Of course, the story coming out this past week, probably emanating from what Hot Rod is saying, that Tony Khan had issued a $6.9 billion bid to buy the WWE instead of Endeavor being the ones to buy it. Of course, the bid didn't go to him. It went to Ari Emanuel and Endeavor, which then formed TKO. What if TK won it instead, though? Well, I'll tell you, Uncle Triple C might have stopped watching that.
I am actually curious as to what the uncle thinks of this one. I would love to hear your thought process behind your answer.
First of all, if Tony Khan bought WWE, you see what the product is on TNT, TBS. Of course, I can't say the same because I do not watch AEW anymore. This is why I dim the lights, right? Now, I was watching for the first few years. I don't watch anymore. That's the bottom line. Unless Nate forces me to go watch one of those stupid pay-per-views. But anyway, that's another conversation. If Tony Khan bought WWE, let's be real. It's not far from what what you guys watch on the other side. So if he bought, he'd have been, I'm sure, the guy running WWE too. So it would have been very similar to what you watch, on the other side. So I'm glad that didn't happen. And the only question is that who decided, to as far as I guess the board, I guess of WWE that I guess as a company, I guess must have decided Endeavor over Tony Khan. I'm assuming. But listen, bottom line, I'm glad that it was not Tony Khan. End of story.
Peace, you feel the same.
I have never been one of those, and this is just general, whether it's wrestling, sports, business, whatever. I do not like monopolies because that stagnates competition, innovation falls apart, and then you end up getting what we got when shortly before AEW came into existence. We got a lot of dreck. And remember, when we were doing this show and we were talking about what was going on with the WWE at the time, we hammered WWE almost on a regular basis about how awful their product was and how they used the same old tropes, the same old storylines, the same old things that were going on. And then at the time, AEW, which was just by virtue of being new and fresh, gave you could exhale. You could see something different. You had other stars that were there. You can bring that out there. If Tony Khan buys WWE, one, I don't know if he would even run WWE, at least in the way that we think he would run WWE. One, he might have been forced to hire somebody else to run WWE for him. Would he mothball the company and everything else? No, because the real value in WWE are the IPs. It's the WCW, the ECW, it's the library, the network, the history, the belt, everything that they own IP-wise, because the merchandising is what drives the money, and that's what drives everything else. And then that drives WrestleMania and all of the pay-per-views and everything. So that would be the case. And Tony Khan has not shown that he can take, which he now has a 7-year-old business and can run it anywhere near as efficiently as WWE from the standpoint of growing the product the way that Vince McMahon did, even leaving the company or being forced to retire or whatever the situation was when Vince finally left WWE. I don't know where they would go. I don't know what storylines would happen. I don't even know who would be in the company and whether they would go in, what they would do. And even more so, would Tony Khan have purchased Ring of Honor what would he have done with Ring of Honor and melded them into AEW? What would he have done? Because he can't run 3 promotions.
I agree. Well, within that sense, I guess we can smell what the Uncle Triple C's cooking. That marks the end of our question of the week, and we move to the final topic of today's show: Cody's character arc amid Orton's heel turn. And he's still smelling up in the air. Okay, I got you. But within everything, as he begins to do that, I just want to say, Cody's character arc amid Orton's heel turn. I have been thinking, of course, with what Uncle Triple C said earlier in the show, Triple H and WWE, they turned the wrong person heel in this sense. Now, what if at WrestleMania 42, we get shades of WrestleMania 13, and we get a double turn, in which Randy turns back face and Cody turns heel? Can we see that happening? Peeps?
I could see it happening if the company is brave enough to stand by Cody turning. Now, we'll know that on some level based on what happens over the next 2 weeks. And I say 2 weeks because next week will be Cody's chance to respond to what has happened with Orton. Orton was able to kind of lay down what kind of person he's going to be going in. We have the dynamic of the phone conversation, who I think it's going to be Cowboy Bob Orton, his father. We have the dynamic of him snapping, whether he's good, he's bad, he just turns and snaps, and that's where he is with that. Can he be trusted backstage? The Sami Zayn arc, because that's now interconnected with this feud. Because we know Sami Zayn is personally invested with, I don't know what we're doing with Cody. Every time I try to help Cody out, it seems to backfire. Sami gets frustrated, and then the next thing you know, he's flipping bottles over, or he's kicking doors down, or he's doing something aggressive. Yet he's still looking up to Randy Orton. Where does that go? Does Orton turn and say, you know what? I'm a face. I apologize for how I treated you. And then Cody goes ahead and does what he does. It'd be interesting if Cody does turn heel, how that interaction with Sami, that dynamic, does that change? Yeah. Does it accentuate the turn? Does it come across as, I couldn't see that coming, but I could understand why Sami would go a certain way. And for Cody, his influence on the locker room, because the turn would be, this would be like what happened with Hulk Hogan turning the NWO. It has that kind of implication if Cody changes and turns. How do they react with the material that would be coming from after that? And I'd be very curious as to what they do, only if that's the case. Because a milquetoast Cody is not going to cut it in this feud.
Exactly. Uncle Triple C.
I feel that Cody Rhodes, again, I already said it earlier in the show, so I don't need to rehash all of that. Only thing with Cody, listen, right now, WWE, you had 20 plus years of John Cena that you did not turn him until his final year. Do not make the same mistake with Cody Rhodes. That's the only thing I have to say regarding Cody.
Okay. So you feel that it should happen sooner or later, but if you're itchy for it, WrestleMania would be it.
I don't think it's going to happen at WrestleMania.
Okay, but probably
and it would be a slow build if that's where they're going.
Yes, it has to be a
slow build. Okay, so hopefully by the end of this year, Cody Rhodes is heel.
Right.
Look how long it took for them to turn Orton, and we're not all necessarily in the same mindset that was the original plan. But we knew, and I used to bring this up a lot, that I was of the mindset, say about 6 or 8 months ago, that this was going to be the match that they did based on what they were doing with Orton. Every time there was an interview, he would go ahead and show up and look a little jealous. Even when he won the championship and he was sitting on Randy's shoulder and they would look holding him aloft as champ, he wasn't looking at Cody. He was looking at Cody's championship.
Yep.
So there was always that dynamic to build on top of. And I think it was perfectly done. They dropped those breadcrumbs over the last 18 months. And now that they pulled the trigger on it, I like what they're doing right now.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, you hear that in the background? That means we have officially hit the 4 o'clock marker. And that marks the end of today's episode of Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for going ahead and tuning into this episode. We greatly appreciate it. Follow us on all of our social media platforms. But the greatest thing is that I want you guys to hear this announcement. Be here next week, Saturday. Special start time, mid-noon, for the 5-year anniversary of Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. It's going to be a great show. Certainly a reunion with you gentlemen. Having you guys go ahead and be here for the 5-year anniversary is certainly going to be a doozy. And to have our special time slot back just for 1 week only, even though I know we would probably want to have it back forever. Look, we're going to work on that. But, gentlemen, we will be here next week. I can't wait to see you guys, and I can't wait to see you guys, the fans. But just remember, we love you. We thank you guys. This was Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. We're out of Phenomenal One.
And I, the Peeps Nate.
And for the greatest AAA mega heavyweight campeon, the king of the luchadores, Dominic Mysterio, I am your uncle. Hey, cameraman, you zoom in right the right way. I am your uncle, Triple C. And for my prestige colleague, Mr. 411, Christopher Morton, we will see you next week.
Indeed.
Thank you for the house.
Yes.
Indeed. Well, we came, we saw, we conquered. That's it. Peace, love. Farewell.
Yeah.